And what was happening is children were making up these terrible stories uh, against child care center workers, Sunday school teachers, all of this that weren't true. And slowly this got figured out. And in 1995, a book was published about how to do proper interviews to avoid confirmation bias. So what they found is basically children and adults want to please people, and so they tell interviewers what they think they want to hear. That because they're authority figures in charge of figuring things out, they figure out what the person wants to hear. So yeah, that's what happened, when it's not what's true. So investigators with one theory inappropriately ask leading questions. What were you wearing when your father touched your privates, or something like that? Well, so a child who wants to go home figures out the person wants me to say something. So I'm going to say, I was wearing my cowboy pants, or I was just wearing my underwear, something like that. But the interviewer got it wrong. And so with leading questions like this, and by the way, this is 1990s, so there's been much improvement and you don't hear as much about this, but there's still allegations of child sexual abuse that often are actually alienation cases. So I'm going to mention child sexual abuse. I'm going to mention domestic violence. These are true problems, but they also get confused with alienation. And so if you're going to court, you need to know that and make sure that this is considered as one of the possibilities, that this is alienation and not child abuse or something else. And what happens when an interviewer and decision maker just has one point of view is that the people with the other point of view are afraid to speak up. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today, is the confusion when there's one theory. So as an example, child refuses to see dad and grandparents, everybody on that side of the family. And so the professional that's looking into it could be a judge taking testimony, could be psychologists looking into it, could be just lawyer or mediator that's trying to understand, maybe even a therapist. And so they may focus on information. The first theory that's put out there is that, well, dad must have abused the child. The child resists seeing dad because of that. And the child's angry at dad. And the child says, dad ruined my life. Dad's controlling. Dad pulls my hair. Dad shoved me down once and I fell down. And so, well, sounds like a case of child abuse, doesn't it? Well, they may disregard information or not even look for it that doesn't fit that theory. So maybe mom repeatedly tells the child that dad caused the divorce, that dad's a mean person, that dad hit her once when the child was 1 year old. And maybe the child's 8 or 9 now, or 12 or 13. And that's their only source of information because they've resisted seeing dad. And mom, in this case, is emotionally intensely invested in saying that dad's terrible. So it looks like it's an abuse case. And in many cases, family court judges have a lot of cases, so they're quick to decide, okay, well, so this is a child abuse case, what should be done? Rather than, is this a child abuse case? And that's where people need to speak up and say, there's another problem. There's a different problem going on here, and that's alienation.